Welcome to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers with Linda Prio. Will it be possible to remain in my home as I age? Do I feel safe in my home? How do I figure out how much support I will need when my health needs start to change? What if I decide to move into a community instead? Which community will meet my needs now and in the future? Who will play a role in helping me with decision making? Do you ask yourself these same questions? Aging in Place Strategies and Answers can help you gain practical knowledge that will help you create your own Aging in Place roadmap. If you are already a care partner, a power of attorney, or in crisis mode with your Aging in Place strategy, you will learn what you need to know that you don't know. For over 20 years, I have been marketing Aging in Place services to clients and educating families and healthcare professionals in how to put aging in place strategies into place. When you utilize aging in place, you are allowed to choose where you want to live and make those decisions so that you can retain your quality of life. Welcome back to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers podcast. Maybe it was just me, but I seem to hear some new information after the first of the year when people are usually thinking about some lifestyle changes, and news folks are always trying to bring things to our attention that we can do to improve our lives. And what I heard was information about a new study that linked a fulfilling social life with slower biological aging and reduced inflammation. The research adds to the existing evidence that strong social ties can positively influence healthy aging. And the experts who did this study say that you should view loneliness or isolation just like you would hunger or thirst. It is a signal that you are lacking something essential for your health. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today, but more specifically, a term that maybe you have never heard about before, and I certainly hadn't, and that is a super ager. So listen with me today, and let's take this one step at a time, and we're going to be better for having taken the moment out of our busy schedules to just hear this information and then decide what we want to do with it. Last week, I dropped in to visit with a case manager at one of the rehabilitation centers in the area of which I live. And then on my way out, I decided to drop by the admissions desk and say hello to a colleague. I asked this person who was in charge of intake calls at admissions to the rehabilitation community if they were experiencing a high volume due to the latest respiratory flu and COVID season, because everywhere I went, I heard people coughing and sniffling. And then, of course, we know that this time of year is usually the time when people are huddled together, and especially after the holidays, these respiratory flu symptoms and viruses seem to flourish, as well as the fact that as I was out and about in my community, I saw signs on doors saying, hey, put a mask on. It's flu and COVID season. Be prepared. So that's why I asked her the question. And she said, no, Linda, we're not busy because of the flu and COVID. We're just busy because of the usual scenario. People not taking care of themselves. And so we ended our conversation, and I thought, how sad. that this is what we see, this is what we continue to see. And I say we because many of us who work in senior health, we see the folks that usually are not taking good care of themselves or are neglecting their health. And this is how it translates. But it all falls into the same category of what we're talking about today. And that's why I'm bringing that story forward so that you can just take a listen and evaluate what you like about this podcast and what you don't like, and how it might change you after you listen to it. So let's talk about super agers. Did you know that a super ager is someone age 80 years or older who exhibits cognitive function that is comparable to an average person who's middle-aged? So if we figure that middle age is somewhere between 45 and 55, and we're talking about someone who's 80, that they're exhibiting a cognitive function of somebody in that middle age category, which that would be lovely, wouldn't it? And additionally, super agers show less brain volume loss than is typical for someone their age. Now, my question for you and my question for myself is, would you like the opportunity to become a super ager? And only you can make that decision for me, and only I can make this decision for me. But I would tell you that this is why New Year's resolutions fail. So if you say to yourself, no, I really don't want to be a super ager, who cares about that? Then obviously you'll continue in the same path. If you think that that would be nice to be a super ager, but then you take no effort in which to then promote a plan or some strategies that will help you get there, it's like having a New Year's resolution that has no teeth in it and is destined to fail. So if you would like to be a super ager, someone who exhibits cognitive function that is comparable to an average person who's middle-aged, then it is going to take some effort if you decide that that's what you want to do, and some planning and some strategies. But you've come to the right place, folks, because you know that this is what I'm all about. I like to provide resources, and I like to provide strategies, and I like to provide ideas, because really, secretly, we all want to be super agers. However, there will be only a certain portion of you and us, whoever I'm talking about, that is actually going to listen, absorb the information, and then take the next step. So, first things first, let's learn what habits are linked to poor health and cognitive decline. Then we're going to take a quick look at self-neglect and the results of self-neglect. Then we can take a look at the habits that superagers have, and then we can evaluate where we are and what we want to do and how we might like to take steps to improve our own health and cognitive function. So here are some habits that are generally linked to poor health and cognitive decline. And this is what my friend was trying to tell me when she said, just the usual, Linda, people not taking care of themselves, prolonged sitting, poor sleep, and excessive alcohol use, plus social isolation, smoking, poor diet, and lack of exercise all contribute to poor health and cognitive decline. If you are diagnosed with high blood pressure and or diabetes, if you let these two chronic conditions go untreated, you increase your risk of poor health plus cognitive decline. But did you also know that if you let hearing loss go untreated or do not have visits to dentists to protect your oral hygiene, that this can also contribute to the risk of dementia? And those are some things that people don't always think about. We think of the big ones, but we don't always think of hearing loss and poor oral hygiene. But one of the things I do want to bring up so that we have it in our line of sight is social isolation, because this is really where we're headed today, is thinking about isolation, because we know that a fulfilling social life or community connections really do their job in promoting better health and better cognition. Now, I just want to take a moment so that you understand why oral health is so important. Did you know that gum disease, the bacteria involved in gum disease can travel to the brain, and it can cause inflammation and plaque buildup? Hearing also causes social isolation, and it because of not being able to hear what's going on or identify voices and sounds and what the words are that are being spoken. It forces your brain to work harder, and it also accelerates cognitive decline. So I think it's an important next step to talk about self-neglect. So self-neglect is a general term used to describe a vulnerable adult living in a way that puts his or her health, safety, or well-being at risk. And so now that you know what the signs are and you know what the habits are, then we can take reasonable next steps and not practice self-neglect. However, studies have shown that 28% of older adults exhibit behaviors of self-neglect, and the behaviors are driven by cognitive impairment, also impaired mental status, possibly some mental health conditions, including depression, but also physical limitations can affect this self-neglect. But however it occurs, self-neglect significantly increases your mortality. And new health studies are being released, and that's what they were talking about on the news, and this is what I've been reading, that strong social connections are really vital for your health. You know, isolation is the lack of contact with other people. And like I said, it really increases your mortality rate. To be socially isolated, folks tend to be less healthy. They have longer hospital stays and are readmitted to the hospital more often. And isolation increases your dementia risk by 50%. However, key findings show that robust social networks and community engagement reduce inflammation, lower stroke and heart disease risk by 30%, and potentially slow biological aging. I don't know about you, friends, but I am interested in that. Now, a word from our sponsor.
At Family Partners Home, we help residents maintain dignity while promoting well-being. Residents receive 24/7 supervision and care in a home-like setting in assisted living homes that are located in residential neighborhoods. Each home is a single-family home designed and built specifically for those with dementia. For more information about Family Partners Home, 314-686-4468, online at familypartnershome.com. It feels like home. It is a home.
Let's return to our podcast where we're learning how to become super agers. Well, a super ager actively, and that's my key word there for you to remember, a super ager actively cultivates a lifestyle that includes consistent physical activity. You know, it's so important that the blood flows back to the brain. It's so important that you and I improve our muscle strength and improve our stamina. One thing I have noticed about super agers is that they are going to the gym first thing in the morning. So if you want to witness a super ager in action, then I would suggest that you get your shoes on and your workout clothes and get your keys and get in your car and go to the gym. If you live in a retirement community or somewhere where all you have to do is walk over to where people are working out, I advise you to go and see who those people are. Those people are taking care of themselves as best they can, and they are super agers. When you're at the gym, don't forget to take your smile and smile every once in a while at people. You might even say hello. During COVID, we learned some really bad habits of turning our faces away from people or learning how to not engage with others. But at my gym, the first thing you do is show your card so that you can get in. So how about how do you do? Good morning. Hey, how's it going so far? Or can you please let me in? Or I would need a lock and a towel. Use your words. That's a good way for you to remember them when you use them. But when you're there and you're noticing what people are doing, find out what exercises that they're doing. Are they just sitting around visiting? You might see some of that, and that's important too. I actually witnessed a gentleman who was taking a little snooze. Maybe it was in between his exercises, or maybe it was right before he left. But he was comfortable enough that he just nodded off a bit. But who cares? He was out and about. It's important that seniors work on their balance, and it's important that seniors work on their strength. And that's what I see is seniors at the gym with big, heavy weights. But if you see me at the gym, I'm not going to have big, heavy weights because I can't lift them. But I can do reps. I can do repeated exercises many times, but I may not be lifting heavy weights. You see, it's all about you and what you can do when you go to the gym. But I often see physical therapists working with seniors at the gym, and I often see trainers working with seniors. In fact, the last time I was there, I noticed a couple of seniors walking forward and then they turn around and walk backwards because you know what? It was good for their brain. It was good for their balance to do something different. So if you want to see a super ager in action, go to the gym because that's where they're hanging out. Or if you live in a community where it's not cold, you'll see a lot of super agers out for a walk in the morning or maybe a walk late morning. There'll be super agers riding their bikes. So there's lots of ways to notice super agers. So start looking for them. They're the ones who are out and about and doing things. Now, it's very important that we get rid of overprocessed foods in our diets. It's more important to eat a nutrient-rich diet. And the one that I see being recommended over and over is the Mediterranean diet. And if you don't know what that is, hey, why don't you use your powers of Google and find out what that is and then write out some foods that you can include in your new diet plan. I'm going to admit to you that when I say it's important to make connections and do something new or take a class, I find that my negativity kicks in. Oh, what kind of class am I going to find? And how do I know I'm going to like it? And will it be at a time that's convenient for me or on the right day? Do you have these thoughts too? Well, it's okay. You're human. This is a very natural reaction because at our core, we have a negative bias. Our brains are wired to go to the negative problem-solving bias, okay? Which is great if you're in a life-threatening situation, but we don't always live in a life-threatening situation. But super agers have learned how to acknowledge their negative feelings, but intentionally shift their focus to a positive and a constructive action. And yes, I understand that this takes effort, but super agers don't mind taking that effort. In fact, this is what makes them a super ager. So here's something that you can try if this is you. If you find that you go to your negative bias more often than thinking about the positive aspects, it's called the rule of 3. You pair every negative thought with 3 positive ones. So, little math here. If you have one negative thought and you added another negative thought to it, now you have two negative thoughts. But if you have one negative thought and three positive thoughts, you're going to have more positive thoughts. I'm just going to say three because it didn't get rid of the negative thought, but at least now you have more positive thoughts than negative. And I hope you're following me in my math equation there. Now, here's what you and I probably realize, but maybe have not taken notice of, and that is when you're watching TV or when you're on your phone or when you're on the internet, negative grabs more readers and more followers and more attention than positive. So the news headlines and the stories and the sound bites are always going to be negative and not positive. So be aware and then remember the rule of three. A super ager adds mental challenges to their daily regimen. They might start a new hobby. They might even start playing an instrument or learning to replay an instrument they knew from before. They might try Sudoku, a crossword, a new card game, perhaps even work a puzzle. Maybe you prefer genealogy research, or you would like to learn more about a particular topic. Maybe it is about where your grandparents came from. You want to know more about their town, or you would like to know more about your town and how it got started. You know, you can write your own story. Your story is unique. Your story is interesting. My father decided to write his own story. He decided that he would write a story about the inventions that had come into being during his lifetime. You know, it's your story. It's your life. You can do whatever you want. But one thing is for sure. Your brain is a muscle, and if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So maybe it's important for you and I to grab that and remember it, and then to stay curious and embrace new experiences. Yes, that can be frightening, and we always jump to the negative, but if you use the rule of three, if you embraced a new experience and came away much richer from engaging in the new experience, that would give you your three positives. Now, maybe embracing a new experience is just going to the gym. Maybe it's going to a group that promotes adult learning for seniors. Maybe it's a senior center. Maybe you'd like to attend library programs or university programs. You know, it's very interesting to me that everybody is going after the senior in a way to enrich their lives. The research is clear, and groups are trying to provide a wide intersection of learning and connections for seniors because they realize that it's harder as a senior to make those connections. So while maybe it's harder for you to start a new hobby, maybe it would be easier to just join an established group, such as what I mentioned. You might even ask yourself if you know somebody who'd like to go to an event with you. But even if you decide that, no, this is something that I am uniquely interested in, just know it's okay to go alone. And then when you do go alone, don't forget to say hello. You know, you're going to meet like-minded people. And if you don't develop lifelong relationships, at least you're not isolating. You're out and about and you're experiencing something that is meaningful to you, that fills your bucket, that gives you something to talk about, and that is positive. You know, over sitting too long, staring at the TV, scrolling on your phone, whatever it is, these things can really interfere with your sleep. So if you're not sleeping well, it might be important for you to talk to your physician, because obviously when we feel rested and wake up, it makes a big difference in our mental attitude and challenges. We're more likely to take on challenges when we have rested well. Remember that it's very important for you to maintain your eyesight and your hearing. That's what super agers do. Now, a word from our sponsor. Listeners, do you need a speaker for your group? Or perhaps you would like to know how to access my YouTube channels? Please check out my website, seniorsupportstrategies.com. On the website, you will even find more details about how to get a personal consultation.
Do you want assisted living services but don't want to leave your home? Call Continuum at 314-863-9912. Our professional team has 20 plus years of experience and will help you create the perfect care solution that meets your current and future needs. Continuum supports independence at every stage of life. Call 314-863-9912 for a free consultation or visit us at continuumcare.com.
Let's return to the podcast. Perhaps you have caught headlines or news stories that teenagers, more than ever, are suffering from depression, anxiety, and socialization due to phone use. And there is going to be a lot more legislation coming forward to limit social media. Classrooms are trying to limit the amount of time a student is spending on their phone. In fact, they don't even want the phones in the school, and for very good reason. But you know what? When we look at those statistics, we find that seniors are also suffering from depression, anxiety, and social isolation due to their phone use. The key findings, as I did a quick internet search, here they are. Adults aged 59 to 77 are increasingly addicted to devices, often spending 5 to 6 hours a day on them. Well, the phone has become a substitute for face-to-face interaction, and it is increasing feelings of isolation and loneliness. You know, it's okay to be by yourself, but loneliness is a serious issue. Well, the impact is that phone usage affects our anxiety, it disrupts our sleep, and it decreases our mental well-being. So seniors, it's important that we take this knowledge and we ask ourselves, what can you do besides scroll on your phone all day long, or 5 to 6 hours of scrolling? Well, one thing I thought of easily is your to-do list. You know, that list that you carry from one day to the next and never gets done, or from 1 year to the next and never gets done. That's the one I'm talking about, your to-do list. When you get around to it list. And if you're not spending 5 or 6 hours on your phone, then you've got some free time to use wisely. You could also get out of the house. You know, taking a short walk and saying hello to someone. You might even try waving and see if that helps your mental attitude. You could also turn on music, because music stimulates your brain and it stimulates feelings of well-being. Exercise is another way that you can increase your mental well-being. It will help you to be able to sleep well. It will help your balance and your strength. And you will be in a group of super agers that are trying to do the same thing. Instead of scrolling on your phone, you can make that nutritious and tasty, healthy meal instead of going off to your local fast food for a meal that's going to make you feel full, but maybe not as healthy as you would like to feel if you are a super ager. You know, maybe if you have some additional time, now that you're not scrolling on your phone so much, you could clean out a drawer or maybe even a closet and then donate these items. You could also potentially find a way to volunteer your skills. And I love this story, and I just have to tell it to you because just asking a simple question allowed me to hear such a wonderful story that I can't help but share it with you, because I know it's going to really encourage you and motivate you as a senior who has such a great skill set. You have such a great history. You've had careers. These things can benefit so many people, and yet we're hoarding them for ourselves. So this is how my story begins. Well, hello, Mr. So-and-so. I noticed that you are here at this event today for the long-term care ombudsman, and I noticed you're on the board. How did you get involved in this kind of organization? And just that question stimulated a beautiful conversation. And he told me about how he came from an immigrant family, that he was new to the United States, how he had gotten an education, and how he had found work as an engineer. And he said he found out that he actually had some really good skills for operations and financial management. And so when he retired, he decided that he would approach a not-for-profit. This wasn't his first one. It was just the one he was working with now. And he asked them, hey, do you need someone who's got some good skills for operations and financial management, or to be on your board? Would that be helpful to your organization? And I looked at him in disbelief. I'm like, well, wow, I would have never thought of that. But I asked him, I said, well, were they receptive to that idea? He said, they sure were. He said, I was really taken aback. But he said, yes, they latched onto that idea. He said, people who work for nonprofits are very passionate about their missions, but he said they are not always skilled at development or operations or running an organization. And he said, I realized that I had a lot to offer and that my skill set could help them. Well, you know what? I'm so glad I had that conversation. It just shows that when you ask a simple question and you let the other person talk about themselves, you might just learn something and appreciate what you learned, but then also, how could that information really affect me? Would I have something to offer a volunteer organization? I was visiting with another lady this week. And she is approaching retirement, and she is just approved. She got her license to become a foster parent. And I looked at her and I thought, that's incredible. You are definitely a super ager. And I don't know about you, but I could have thought about 3 to 5 negative things instantly about being a foster parent. But she proceeded and put the positives in front of the negatives. And she is taking care of a 4-year-old young man. And you know what? She's being blessed by that. And so is that 4-year-old young man. So it's never too late. And you have some wonderful skills out there if you would like to share them with others. And in turn, you're going to be known as a super ager. That will improve your health as well as your cognitive ability. Well, some of you still drive. And did you know that Meals on Wheels is always looking for delivery people? But I've also talked to some seniors who are enjoying being Uber drivers or Door Dashers. They just like the people that they're going to meet, and they pick up a little cash on the side. Are you somebody who might have a difficulty? It is difficult sometimes to figure out what might be a meaningful activity, or where to look. Where might I go to find some place that's already established rather than starting something new? Well, senior centers are sometimes called aging ahead. So you can get on your phone, you can get it out and use it to find out where these activities are. AARP has a wealth of activities, not only online, but also in person. And of course, I already mentioned library programs that could present you with a golden opportunity to meet some like-minded folks. So look around. Even universities are having, speakers that you might be interested in attending. And sometimes they offer those free to seniors. So if you live near a university, see what kind of programs they're offering so that you can take a step in the right direction. Now, I understand that making connections, this all takes effort. But remember the rule of 3. Write down the positives from taking what could be a positive from taking a step in the right direction. And I think you might need a tiny habit that will help you to be able to get started. My friend Polly Lemire, she is a tiny habits coach, and this is what she would tell you if she was on my show today. She would say, create a tiny habit after something you do every day. So sometimes we have a morning beverage, or sometimes we watch the news, or sometimes we have breakfast. So if that applies to you, choose to create a tiny habit after something you do every single day. And then what will that tiny habit be? Maybe it is to write down on your calendar a new activity to attend this week. Or maybe it is accomplish one item on my to-do list. When we have the tiny habit and when we follow through, there is something that happens in our brain that makes us feel wonderful. And that is a sense of accomplishment. And that sense of accomplishment then carries a momentum that pushes us forward. So just try it. Just do an experiment. Just say, Linda told me to do this and I'm doing it just for grins. Okay. And the goal, of course, is for us to be super agers, because who doesn't want to age well after all? Now, at the end of every podcast, I always include a caregiver tip. And so if you are a caregiver, it is very important that you stay socially connected as well. It is not okay for you to give up everything so that you are just isolated and feel very alone. Caregiving is not easy. That's why I always include a caregiver tip. But there are other podcasts and there are other ways to get caregiver support. Don't try to be a caregiver all by yourself. So it's vitally important for you as a caregiver to stay socially connected. But how can you help the person that you're caring for also stay socially connected? I watched a lady wheel her husband around the gym track. First time I'd ever seen it. Her husband was trying to get stronger after a surgery, and he would walk a little bit, then he would sit down, and she would wheel him around. And I saw her do that on multiple days, and you know what? It's the first time I have ever seen it, and I was really proud of her. She was working hard to get him stronger, and she was working on her own strength. What an inspiration to see something like that. I have also seen more fragile seniors sitting and enjoying the coming and going at events, or perhaps even at a gym. It's the opportunity to just get out and see something besides four walls. It's the opportunity to see people coming and going. Go to the library. There are people going in and coming out. It's just good to get out of your own four walls. And I would also say that even for those who are suffering from dementia, and caregivers wonder, can I really get my loved one out? Is there something appropriate that we can do together? And I'm going to tell you that there there is something appropriate that you can do. Many restaurants are aware that some seniors have a cognitive decline. In fact, some seniors will hand a card to their server to say, hello, I'm caring for somebody who has cognitive decline. So they'll know, if this person acts a little different or doesn't respond or doesn't make eye contact, that there's a reason for that. But I would also tell you that there's a lot of restaurants that open early for seniors and workers. And if you go to a restaurant, there might just be another senior there having coffee. And it just might be possible that they're looking to make a connection, to have a word with someone other than themselves. So remember, say hello. Say, hope you have a great day. Or how'd you like that muffin? Anything is better than nothing sometimes. In order to be a friend, you have to try to be one. And to have a friend, same thing. So if you do have someone you're caring for who has dementia, you might also find an adult day program so that you can have some time to yourself where you can get your health needs taken care of and nurture yourself either with a social connection or doing an activity that you enjoy. At our adult day program, we had a lady who would drop her husband off and then she would take ballet. And she was an older lady, and I was fascinated. But that's what made her happy, and that's what kept her healthy. And she did that for a very long time. People with dementia can still connect socially in many appropriate situations. So don't think that just because they have dementia doesn't mean that they're not going to be appropriate. And I would also just say that inviting somebody over to your house for a simple game or maybe a cup of tea or a coffee or whatever, but having an activity to look forward to can really be the cure for social isolation and losing your social connections. Listeners, thanks for listening to me today, and I hope I have inspired you to become a super ager and to take good care of yourself so that you can live and thrive at any age. Thank you for joining me today. Please remember that this podcast is intended as education and not advice. Don't forget to share this podcast with family, friends, or colleagues who want to learn how to age in place, but also share this with those who find themselves in crisis mode. Please go to my website, seniorsupportstrategies.com for more information. When you subscribe to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers, you gain access to premium content and professional tips on creating your own Aging in Place roadmap. As always, I value the time you spend with me.